Hello, hello, hello. This is Tomeka, and Reginald is here with me today as my first guest ever. And so this is Welcome to Voices. This is a new show that I'm starting. Voices came because I felt like I never had a voice. And so this show is basically for me to allow people to come on and have a voice. And me along with them, to us voice, to talk about different things that are happening in our world that we want to express. Various topics we'll be having on this show. But today, I think just to introduce it, we're just going to have a conversation back and forth. I think I'm going to start with my journey, and my journey, of course, includes Reginald, who has been a part of my journey. And it's kind of funny because he is the beginning of a journey that had started years previously that I had put aside for a moment, and then at some point I brought it back, and he came in and was like that breath of fresh air to tell me it was okay. So I'm actually going to just kind of piggyback on something that you said before in one of your interviews. You had mentioned about God being the force in your life, the part that allowed you to go in that action, but not necessarily knowing the direction you would go in. It just was handed to you, basically. It was that you just knew that it was time. So kind of piggyback on that a little bit, just so I can, and I'm gonna follow up with that.
I think how I phrased it was it wasn't something that I was chasing. It was, a higher calling that, just kept pulling me into the direction. Just like you said, you mentioned about, me being a part of the beginning of a journey that you thought about, was talking about doing years, before we even met. From you actually being, my instructor, my, professor, teaching a class in psychology, was our first time, meeting. And just like you said, in a talk that I did earlier, I talked about, seeing people, that look like me, in positions, that normally you don't see, often. And so with this being voices, that seeing that visual, gives you the opportunity to speak your voice, I think, in
You got
life.
it. Yep, absolutely, absolutely. So actually, as you were talking, and that's why I wanted you to kind of start it off, because then it gets me comfortable to, to following up with that, because that's exactly it. Is that being in the setting that I've been in for years, being in the academic world, being in the psychology field, believe it or not, people don't know the hidden side of psychology. They don't know the hidden side of the academic world. They don't know what it's like to be a black female or a black male in that academic world and in that psychology world. We see what we see in the front, but we don't see the behind the scenes things. And honestly, that's where my idea for voices came from, because if I was to backtrack, some of the stifling of my voice came from that. Came from being in that world where I felt like I could not express myself in the right way, right? Always being careful what you say, being careful how you say something, being careful that if you say the wrong thing, then
who you say it to,
right? And it's just, it for me has stifled my voice, right? And so I wanted this platform to be somewhere where people can be free, be open, and know that they can express themselves without judgment, if that makes sense. And so backtracking a little bit to how I got to this place that, career-wise. Always loved psychology. From time I was a little child, I just really had an interest in how people thought, why they do the things that they do, what is our purpose here on earth. So everything for me stemmed from understanding people, understanding people's journey, understanding my journey, understanding my whys. But I always believed that there was this higher power that also saw a little bit further than we did, and kind of was that guide. So even when we made mistakes, he kind of got you back on track, or he made sure that, hey, let's take a moment to stop and learn from this, right? And so everything that I've done, I see if I was to backtrack and look at the events to me getting to this point and the people that I met along the way, I see that each one is connected. And I like that, because now I recognize that, oh my goodness, like that experience was something that I had to experience. I had to go through here, I had to go through this to get to this point. And so it's funny because even with my son, it was like he was a blessing that came to bring that other side that I needed as well. And who would have thought that when he turned 20 that he would just be like, okay, it's time now, Mom. It's time to just have your voice, right? And going back to when you came in, it was like I was teaching and I was enjoying it. I mean, I had got to teaching through the area of counseling. So again, I love psychology, so naturally, first place that I would go to would be counseling because it felt safe. Being able to sit with somebody one-on-one and have a conversation with them and help them seemed like the right pathway. However, what I did notice was that somehow something switched and I ended up in the teaching realm. So mind you, I'm the person that didn't have a voice, the person that did not like to speak in front of people, doesn't even really like cameras, but I'm here. I'm here today. And somehow I ended up in the teaching realm, and it started with disabilities. Speaking of what your field is, isn't that wild? That was my area. My first job with teaching, and that was accidental because that wasn't my pathway. My pathway was I wanted to be a clinical psychologist, and I just knew that was where I was going, and I was going to have my own business. I knew whatever I did, I was going to have my own business, right? So when I ended up with the teaching, like I said, it was accident. It fit into my son's world at that time, and I wanted to make sure that he had certain things in his life. And I realized that at that time, the graduate program that I was in was so intense that I was like, I got to make a decision, my son or the career, right? And so when I found out about teaching, they were like, okay, well, teaching, you can have a flexible schedule and it works along with him being in school. I was like, oh, okay, this could work. So I did it, all right? So I ended up in teaching. I started with special education. It worked for me at the time, but then there was something not quite right with it. And that's I tell everybody that story. I'm not going to tell it today. But from it, I had to have a voice. I started having a voice because I realized that the people that I was working with, the kids that I was working with didn't have a voice. And everybody would say, oh, you can't do this or you can't do that. And it would make them feel bad. And I just saw all the inconsistencies in the school system. I saw how they were treated. And all it did was just make me upset because I was like, that's not fair. I said, you are making them seem like they're different. And I'm like, they're just like anybody else. All of us are like the same. It's just that the school system has put a label on them and has identified them as being different. And I'm like, I didn't agree with that. Right. So eventually from that, I ended up being a special education advocate. And that was to get the beginnings of my voice, because I had to go into meetings and I finally had to speak up. I had to speak up for every single kid that I was working with to make sure that they had the best program for them. And that meant challenging people, which I was uncomfortable doing, but I ended up doing it. So from that, it was like, okay, you still teaching, you really don't want to teach. So somehow I ended up back in teaching again, right? But that lesson was for me to now be able to get like an inner strength. It was like an inner strength of faith that no weapon formed against me came up to light during that time, my phase in my life where I had to constantly say, no weapon formed against me shall prosper, because being in that setting and going against, having your voice go against what the masses were saying meant that you're going to get that drawback. You're going to get people saying, oh no, you shouldn't say that, and then you're going to get in trouble, right? Which is how I associated with trouble, right? So I kept my mouth shut, but when I had to go back to teaching, it forced me to speak again. You've got to speak up. So then I developed an inner strength, right? And that was the beginning of my voice. So then from that inner strength, from that moment, then it was, okay, so now let's go back into the counseling field. So then I went back to the counseling field and did that for a while. And again, I was that voice again for mental illness. That voice saying that you're okay. Just because you feel a certain way, it's okay. It's okay for you to be who you are and be that best person possible. And so from that point on, I was like, okay, I'm good. So then something just kept bringing me back to that teaching world, right? So it was like crazy. That's how I ended up, where my current position is at. I thought I could bridge the gap between the two, but then somehow the counseling got pushed to the side from burnout, which is what my business is based on, stress management basically. But it got put to the curb because I was too stressed out over the counseling and dealing with that counseling realm and trying to balance teaching. So from that teacher realm, got back into the teaching role, and then I was like, okay, you finally have a voice. So at first it was still stifled to a certain extent because I felt like I had to be what they wanted me to be in the classroom. But then I realized, you know what? We're going to make it you. You're going to become your best version of a teacher, mentor. I call it teacher mentor. And that's how I ended up in the teaching role. So when you came into my classroom, I was about to go into that vision of being a businesswoman. Because remember, my ultimate goal was to have my own business. At that time, it was clinical psychology was the role. But then, a lot of other stuff happened in between that made me decide that I didn't necessarily want the clinical aspect because I saw a missing component to that. So I ended up wanting to go the route of coaching. So then I said, I'm going to start this business coaching. Right? So when I met you, it was like I was just in the beginning of getting started with the business structure because I thought, okay, I'm going to work with adolescents, let me get to do this. But it was like a jump start, okay, let's get started, right? And then I remember when I started my business, I had my first office. I went and was bold enough to go get an office. Was like, okay, I hope you can pay for this. I said, I'm going to step out for this. I was like, I hope I can pay for this, right? But I did. Wow. And I remember you were one of the few people that had came to my opening and you gave me a card, and I still have your plaque that you gave me, the journey. And I was like, this is it. This is the journey, right? And that's why I said the journey that we take. Because that plaque sits, in my office, my new office now, and it says the journey. It's a journey, right? And from that point, I thought that was the route I was going to go, was to work with adolescents. But then again, things change again, right? Change, which is one of the things that you spoke about before, is about change. So something said, not necessarily this. There's something more, but it's connected to what you do now, with the teaching that you do now. But there's another aspect to it. So something just felt like, no, this is not the route to take, right? So at some point in my head, something said, wait a minute, young adults, voice. And it felt, okay, wait a minute, that's the population you work with, you enjoy it, let's merge it. Let's merge it into something else, right? So then I switched gears into where I'm currently at, which is stress management, right? Because I realized that the young people, the common message that I heard from them was depression, anxiety, stress, right? And then I kept saying, wait a minute, those were the things that I felt at their age. Those were the things that it took me years to resolve. But then once I started working through it and I got my voice to express it, then I realized that there is a blueprint to a certain extent. Now the blueprint is going to look different for everybody, but it's a blueprint anyway, right? And so at some point in the midst of all this, yoga came into play. So that's when I learned techniques like, the meditation that you had talked about before. And I learned about the mindfulness, practicing mindfulness in the not being as rigid. So just going with the flow almost. So you just go with the flow, but that flow can change at any moment, and that's okay.
Right.
Because that flow is for you, right? And I realized that I wanted to be that guide to help people find out what their blueprint is, which is not my blueprint, but it's their blueprint. But the tools are there. So everything that I did from the past, from the counseling to the yoga, to my spirituality, embracing spirituality, to my learning about people, the psychology, the mental health, the special education and disabilities, and all of it came together. And I'm like, this is it. This is it, right? And so my next phase, I think now, is to get it out there. And part of Voices is getting it out there. Is allowing people to have that place, to have their voice on various topics. Right?
Yep.
So, yeah, the first person. Welcome. Okay, so I want to just look at my little son over here. And you pick a topic for us, and we are going to discuss that topic for Voices. What would you like to hear from us too? I'm the old person here. I'm the older person here, though, I guess. But what topic would you like to hear from us? You want to go first?
What does money mean to me? I don't know. I could probably say money don't mean nothing to me. Because my drive every day is not to make money, to see money. I don't spend money every day. So, if I fill up, beginning of the week, with gas, groceries, got clothes, on my back, shoes on my feet, utilities, where I am, water, running water, so I'm not chasing, money is not something that that I'm chasing on a daily basis. A better version of myself is what I seek when I get up in the morning. So what money means to me is, it's something, we as people, society thinks that we need it, and we need an abundance of it. But at the end of the day, it's paper.
It's paper.
It burns. You just think about it. Think about it like this. You go and withdraw all the money out of, whatever, bank or wherever you keep, your money, and you sit on a table. Everything, your life savings, your inheritance, whatever, it's all on the table. Someone could be hiding up in the ceiling, pour gasoline on top of that table and that money, and throw down a flame, and in that moment, it's all gone. Now, if that was what your motivation was to, getting up and doing anything that day, what do you have now? So, that's not my motivation. You know, money. Now, at the end of the week, or bi-weekly, when you get up every day and you do something to serve, to help, to provide, or whatever it is that you do, and at the end of that week, you see what it is that they think you're worth. You receive on paper, which you can burn, at any given time, and it doesn't exist anymore, or if it's direct deposit. I'm just going, off the top of the head right now, so it's nothing I'm saying is, I'm reading from, it's written, it's just, it was a question, a topic, so this is what I'm, saying about it. So at the end of the day, a better version of myself is what I is striving to see each day and each night. It's not a face on a dollar bill.
You know what? That's why I like talking to people, and this is why I wanted to have this show, because you get a different perspective.
Yeah.
Because I probably would have answered that different. And the amazing thing is that I can hear you, and taking that moment to hear you, what you just said, makes perfect sense, because we never really think about it. You're right. That money is a piece of paper, and that paper can be wiped out at any point. Like, somebody literally can burn all my dollars right there, and then what is supposedly my worth is gone. But it really isn't my worth.
Well, it's people or society may value your worth on
exactly. It's gone.
Amount of money on the table.
Right, and I never thought about it in that way. I mean, I looked at it as paper, but the only thing I was seeing is the need for it because society values it, right? And so what I was seeing was that we need the money because I gotta pay bills, and if I go to the doctor and I get this, this bill, I need to have more. So I was actually chasing the dollars. Now when I look at it, I actually was chasing the dollars, and I was chasing the dollars because society says that if I don't have the dollars, then I can't get the best health care, or I can't, have a house that looks good, or my electric is going to get cut off, which, it has been a threat. I've had that happen almost, So my thing is that I was looking at it as just money, right? Like, that I had to have it. But when you put it in that perspective, it just hit me, and it was like, oh my, you're right. All the money that I have put aside to save can be taken at any moment, and then it does not exist anymore. Like, it's gone. Like, literally gone. I mean, dang. That's like a reality check. That's really a reality check. However, I also believe that money comes and goes. Like, there's supposed to be a flow of money. So I'm going to get the money, and then I spend the money, and then the money comes back, and then it goes back. It takes care of what it needs to take care of, and so forth.
What do they call that? Investing? Or
what is the term? There's a term for it. There's a term for it.
And it comes back.
Right. There's a term for it. I can't think of it right now. But it is. There is a term for it, and I cannot think of it, because money's supposed to flow. That's the basis of it. It's supposed to flow in and out, because we're not really supposed to hold money.
Right.
Because money is supposed to have movement.
Right.
And I guess we could look at it from another aspect, that money is not necessarily, because money is paper and it's worth really nothing in reality. But the money is, like, I think you all said in the last interview about the money being a means to something. There's something that we require money, we value money because it provides us with something. So, for instance, if health is I want to be healthy, right? So I might invest my money in health stuff, because I want to be healthy. Or maybe, to me, I value education. And in order to go to school, what do we need? We need money, right? So I would take that money and I would use that money to go to school. Or if what I value is my family, then I go to work and I make money so that I can provide for my family so that they can have the things that I feel is important for them, you know, to do what they need to do. So I think it's a complicated topic, money. That's a really hard question. It really is a hard question because it's the need, the want, and then it's the have to have almost. I mean, because like as much as we want to say we don't, because I want to say I don't, but I have been there when I didn't have money, and I know what it feels like when they're knocking on your door saying that if you don't have this money right now, we're going to turn off your electric, and it's like, turn off my electric, but then what I'm supposed to do, right? So at my point, but then that's where it comes in, the spirituality comes in, you know, and I guess that's why I say that money is.
Can you name 5 things right now that without money you can't have?
That I can't have?
Yeah.
Or can have?
Can't have.
Can't have without money.
Just name 3. Try 3. You throw in 3 things. Am I asking the question correctly?
Yeah.
Am I asking it right? Yeah, without money, you will not have these things. Name 3
house.
things.
A house.
Well, not technically. You can end up with all that. A parent could pass that down to you.
Okay.
Most
Okay,
material.
don't think
too far into it.
Yeah,
gotcha.
then just asking, to try to name 3 things that you think you cannot have without money.
Okay, because if I don't think them, because I would probably say first, I would say healthcare, but then health, I would say health without money.
What do you need?
Because you need the
what
food.
Do you need? Money.
You need the food.
Technically, you don't.
All of that is earthly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All of your health is from the earth.
Right.
All of your herbs.
Yeah,
everything. So the idea, the mindset of understanding that you technically won't need the money to have good health.
This is true.
Something else.
Okay. Okay,
I
I see
think
what
about
you're
it,
saying. I see what you're saying. It's because I see what
older
you're saying.
generations,
They
had
live off earth.
plants.
You're right.
If you get a rash,
right.
They
You're right.
put a plant on there, or so. I just asked that question, to
No, I see what you're
trying to
saying.
give you, and people in
I get it.
another, vision, another voice.
I get it. I get it, and you're right, because if you think about it, society or the world has kind of made us think that we can't, and again, that's come, and I hate to say this, if I'm in the field, education has brainwashed us. So it's taken away because
I think too the idea that has been presented is without you will never, you will continue to be without, you will never have, but they don't show you the people, that, the uneducated people, that have it, and they're okay.
right. But that's the thing, we've been brainwashed. Because even with, like you just said, you said the medicine, right? But we know that deep down, but what do they always tell us? That medicine has been proven, has been tested. But yet, what the industry says is that the stuff that we have to pay for has been tested. It has been proven that it's effective, right? So whenever we don't go that route, they say it's dangerous. They show us all the stuff that we see out there. If you don't go to surgery, then you're going to die, right? So if you get sick and you have this illness, you gotta go, you can't do the herbs, because the herbs is not gonna help, that's what they tell you. Take that chance if you want to, but you're gonna die. So guess what happens if you go to the doctor? What do you need to do? Money, right? I mean, it's like I don't know, I get it, but it's so ingrained in us. It's so hard for me even to like, I mean, even when you say that and I agree, it's like the other part comes in it. It says, no, Tomeka, no. Because they say that's not right. Does that make sense? So I think that's where it's complicated, but that's a really good topic. So
Close it out.
I would like for you guys to, that was a really difficult topic, Elisa. I think. Maybe not. Reginald probably would say no, not. So what I'm thinking in my mind is that if you guys can just kind of throw in what your thoughts are, I would love to hear everybody's thoughts on money. What is money to you? So please feel free to chime in, send a message if you would like, or just throw something in the chat about what money means to you, and can we do without money?
A lot.
All right.